Hello, welcome to Sports World Have Your Say with me, Amanda Davis, coming up this week. Saying farewell to another legend of the game, we pay tribute to Brazil's midfield maestro Socrates. He's died at the age of 57. Figures revealing the bank-busting fees paid to agents have been released. What do you think? Daylight robbery or a necessary evil? What does it take to win over the fans? Even a 4-2 victory can't stop Steve Keane being booed at Blackburn. We're asking if fans are too fickle.
I just want the fans to go home happy. I think we all want the same thing. We want to see the club win.
And now the draw's been done for next year's Euro finals. How do you rate your chances? Yes, plenty to talk about this week. I'm joined by former Premier League striker Mark Bright. We're standing by waiting to talk to you, so please do get in touch. As ever, if you've got a point to make, we have the place to make it. All the contact details on the side of your screen there. Why not pick up the phone, give us a call on country code 44 20 70 83 73 33, or send us a message on Facebook or Twitter. But before we go any further, let's get a summary of the latest news. You're watching Sports World Have Your Say. Tributes are being paid today to the former Brazil captain Socrates, widely regarded as one of the world's best midfielders, who has died at the age of 57. He'd been in hospital in a critical condition with an intestinal infection since Friday. He scored 22 goals in 60 games for Brazil, starred as Brazil captain at the 1982 World Cup in Spain, a side widely regarded as the best never to have won the World Cup. He played 297 times for Corinthians, also played for Fiorentina and Flamengo, and was named South American Footballer of the Year in 1983. Well, I'm pleased to say I've got former Premier League striker Mark Bright with me in the studio here in London. Joining us from Rio, we've got South American football expert Tim Vickery, and Carlos joins us from Sao Paulo in Brazil on Skype. Tim, let's start with you. How are people reacting to the news of this death?
With great sadness, because Brazilian football has not only lost a former great player today, it's also lost an important, influential, intelligent voice. I think perhaps Dilma Rousseff, Brazil's president, summed it up a few hours ago when she said that Socrates was a champion of citizenship. And it's Socrates, the figure, who will perhaps be remembered in Brazil every bit as much as Socrates, the footballer.
And Carlos, what does Socrates mean to you?
Well, hi everyone. I actually, it's pretty much what just say. For me, especially I support Corinthians. For us, he's like an eternal idol. So it's a very harsh day for us. Today we're playing the final of the Brazilian Championship. So it's a more incentive for the players. And as he said, he plays a very political role in the democratic Brazilian process. So he was far beyond than a ordinary footballer, I would say.
And I know it's a big day, the climax of the Brazilian Championship. Corinthians, of course, who Socrates used to play for, going for the championship. Have tributes been played ahead of that match? Carlos, are you watching that one, Carlos?
Yes, sure. Well, Corinthians and Palmeiras, they represented the greatest derby in São Paulo. So I guess this is one more reason. I mean, the size of this match for us, it means a lot.
Your view?
Oh, Amanda, I mean, obviously growing up, watching the team of 82, Brazil, as everyone said, probably the best team never to win the World Cup. I think even though they lost, they won, because I think they won the hearts of millions of people all around the world watching. And Socrates was intelligent, he was elegant, he was skillful, he was unselfish, he was a leader, he's an icon. And you mentioned the name Socrates, and he goes alongside all the others with Pelé and Revellino, Ronaldinho, Messi, any of the great players that ever lived. So great loss, especially coming on the back of what happened last week with Gary Speed, and the football family's lost two really good players.
Tim, he certainly enjoyed his football, both on and off the pitch.
Well, for Socrates, football was not about what you do, it was about how you did it. He was a bohemian. His life on the football field was joyful expression, it was style and it was swagger. And he carried that approach to his life off the field as well. I think he would admit that his overindulgence with alcohol made him pay a high price, and that's the reason that I think we've lost him so early. He was, and his death is not a particularly great shock. He was in intensive care in August for a few days, and also in September. So there was an overindulgence in alcohol. Ironically, for a medical man, and Socrates didn't dedicate himself full time to football until he concluded his medical studies. But that was the way that he lived his life. I well remember when Tele Santana, who was the coach of the 1982 side, when Tele Santana died in 2006, Socrates, in his excellent column in a Brazilian magazine, he wrote about the scene in the dressing room after that defeat to Italy. And he said that there were many in tears and it was chaos and the media were around. But amid this chaos, Tele Santana was an island of serenity. The line that he kept repeating was, "We did our best. We gave it our best shot." Tele Santana was proud of his players. He recognised that that campaign had ended too soon, but he also recognised that that team had left memories for decades and decades and decades. And I think that's an epitaph also for Socrates' life. It's ended far too soon. There were many, many more things that he could have done, but he's left us with some fabulous memories. He's left the international audience with some fabulous memories from his time with the Brazilian national team. He's left the Brazilian public with memories of the importance of himself as a political figure, as Carlos was alluding to earlier on. In the early 80s, when Brazil was ruled by a military dictatorship, Socrates played a vital role almost in subverting that. With Corinthians then, Socrates was the brains behind a movement called Corinthians Democracy, where the players, the coaching staff, the club workers would sit down and they would vote on all of the issues of day-to-day collective importance to Corinthians. And that was a really good example to Brazilian society of the value of democracy. And I think that in Brazil, every bit as much as what he did on the field and what he did with the Brazilian national team, it's his role in Corinthians democracy which will be most remembered, because it was a vital political role that he played in a very difficult time for the country.
His former teammate Zico is one of the people who've been paying tribute today, and talking about that all-round quality. He says he was a great guy. As a player, he was one of the best that ever played. I had the privilege of being his friend. Our children are friends. He had unusual intelligence. You always expect something good from him. Let me welcome Julian to the programme, a Brazilian who is based in London. What are your memories of Socrates?
Well, Socrates for me he was my first football hero when I was a kid, between 8 and 10 years old. When I discovered football, he was the guy playing for Corinthians. As they said, as Tim said, as Carlos said, he was refined, he was intelligent, not inside the pitch, but outside as well. And he represented everything that Corinthians, the Corinthians supporters, they expect of their team. He was the first one to fight for the ball, to get the balls and to do great passes. His back heel, I think, was going to be remembered forever for many back heels that he used it. And I'm sure that the forwards who played with him will remember as well many passes that he just put the ball for them to score. And well, I think that the happiness and it's going to be the first thing I will remember. And these moments, and of course, on the other side, as a Brazilian, as a human being, his side as a political guy, and his ideas, the way, even the rebel, and in some way, even the drinking thing. He was a rebel, and he drank a lot. He loved his beer, but who loves football, I think, in the same way, loves a little bit of this as well.
Well, please do get in touch with your memories of Socrates. Maybe send us a message on Twitter using the hashtag SWHYS. Mustafa has done just that, saying the footballing community has lost a legend in Socrates. Marcos Silva has tweeted from Rio saying Socrates was the best attacking midfielder that I've seen here in Brazil. He was a very talented player. Not just limited to Brazil, though, the message is. Greg Restel in Australia has tweeted saying Socrates is dead. Such a loss. Next time I use my Socratic syllogism in my first year logic class, it won't be the same. Mark, I'm not sure if you know what Socratic syllogism is.
I was going to Google it, Amanda, but I couldn't even spell it.
But no, there we are. Lots of you sending in your messages. Please do carry on getting in touch with us on Facebook and Twitter, or maybe pick up the phone, give us a call using country code 44 20 70 83 73 33. But football has moved on in so many ways since Socrates played, and you wonder, would it have made of figures released this week relating to agents' fees? They got paid a whopping $112 million in the English Premier League last year, and that is what we're going to be talking about in just a couple of minutes here on Sports World. Have your say, don't go away. Hello, you're watching Sports World Have Your Say. We've been paying tribute to Brazilian legend Socrates, who sadly died earlier on Sunday at the age of 57. And you wonder what he would have made of figures released this week about agents' fees. They show that in the last year in the English Premier League, it spent over $112 million on agents' fees. Unsurprisingly, Manchester City spent more than any other club, with Spurs in second. Mark, that's disgraceful, isn't it? Whatever way you look at it. Can you justify that?
Amanda, the game's changed so much that, you know, the agents are a necessity. They move players from club to club. They find players clubs. They help clubs who want to move players. So if a manager needs to move a player out of his club, the chief executive doesn't do that. The manager will phone an agent, or several agents say, I've got a striker, I want him out in the January window, can you find me a club? I want £5 million for him. And from that moment then, the agent starts to phone around and tries to get the player a club. That's how it all works now. In my days, the club used to phone the other club and say, we like Mark Bright, how much do you want for him? 2 bob. So, you know, and the fee used to be exchanged and the players to move. Now they're an integral part of football, whether you like them or not. Some of the fees that they receive for moving those players is astronomical. That's what I will admit.
2 million, Bob, for Mark Bright, I'm sure. Let me welcome Ronnie to the conversation. He's an Aston Villa fan based in Ireland. Do you think it's ever justifiable spending all this money on agents, Ronnie? Ronnie, I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah. Can you hear me?
Fire away. Do you think it's justifiable spending this amount of money on agents?
I don't see the logic in it when you look at why does a player need an agent? What qualifies you to be an agent? I mean, like Mark said there, if you have a player that you want to offload in the transfer window, I mean, the club should be the club have their own press officers and everything, that they announced a list of players that they have for sale, and if clubs are interested in particular players, they know the player they want. I think it's extortionate fees for agents. I mean, nothing qualifies you to be an agent. They're not accountants. They don't have degrees in business or anything like that. They're just people who mix with other football managers, and I think a lot of the time some of the dealings are, you know, questionable how they come about, you know.
Can I just say this, that if you sell your house and you know, you use an estate agent, the estate agent will get a fee for helping you to sell that house. Now, you can't just put an advertisement in the paper and say, my house is for sale and this is where I live, and somebody comes to buy it. The estate agents have a list, a database of people looking for houses, and they find that person, and it's very similar to a football agent. They've got a wealth of contacts across Europe, across the UK, across the world, where they try and get the right players into the club, and when the club don't want the players, to get them out. So they do a good job.
It has to be said, there's not many people supporting the cause of the agents, I think particularly in this economic climate, Mark. Patrick Collins, who's a correspondent on one of the English newspapers, says the people who could change the tone and the law stand indolently by, while the voracious scufflers pocket their percentages. It's both distressful and disgusting. A wonderful game in hock to charlatans. I suppose at this point we should allow an agent to respond, put forward their case. So let me welcome Sky Andrew to the programme. Sky, what do you say to all these comments being made? Do you deserve to be paid what you're paid?
Well, it's a shame, really, that the only thing that's ever said about agents is negative. I think that the public need a balanced view. There are all different types of agents. There are agents that manage players. There are agents that are brokers. Everyone seems to be using agents, managers, chairmen, clubs. So, I mean, it's fair to say that an agent plays a legitimate part in most walks of life. You know, hotel agents, holiday agents, flight agents. And then Mark mentioned estate agents. Now, an agent should play a legitimate role, and in any profession, there's good agents and there's bad agents. But I just think that we need to have a balanced view. And if someone's going to write an article about agents and say that they're bad for the game, then we need to have names named, and we need to have instances portrayed so that people can actually see why agents are maybe not good for the game.
But is any football agent really in it for anybody other than themselves?
Yeah, I've always said that it's very difficult that if an agent approaches a player, then it's difficult for anyone to believe that that agent has got that player's interest at heart. That's why I've been an agent nearly 15 years. I've never approached a player to represent them, because I believe that a client should choose their agent, and agent shouldn't choose the client. So in an ideal world, a footballer would go and see a few different agents and choose who they want to represent them. A player's got the responsibility of choosing who they want as their representative, and I don't think agents should be allowed to choose clients.
But Mark, what about the situation? Couldn't we just go to scouting talents and chief executives doing the financial dealings? What about that as an issue?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the old days, you would have like a financial director who would organise the contract and see the contract through. But as Sky's saying, I mean, I'm not defending agents here. What I'm saying is they have a role to play, an important role to play. They're involved in the football world, if you like. People say the money goes out of the game, Amanda, but no, the money. If the agents are part of the game, then the money's staying in the game. But these agents sometimes take the players from a young age, and they look after them all the way through their career, and they try and help the players that when they finish the game, they're financially secure. I mean, I know someone like Frank Lampard's agent's been with him since he was 18 years old. You know, and he's coming towards the twilight of his career now, and you know, he's made sure Frank's done the right kind of deals outside of football and that sort of thing. So they set them up. But the days have gone where just the clubs do the deals or go and look for the players. The agents are a broker, as Sky said, and they can source and find the right players for the managers.
Stop press. I have found somebody supporting the agent's cause. George has got in touch with us from Nigeria, writing on the Sports World Have Your Say Facebook page, and says agents find talent and help them blossom. They're part of their successes. Do they deserve how much they're earning? Hell yes, he says. Let me welcome Ralph to the conversation, a Spurs fan from South Africa. Ralph, Spurs were second on the list of the amount that they've been paying to agents in the last year. Do you agree with that amount?
Well, it's difficult to say whether it's justified or not. But I think we have to find the right players, and I think the urgency has been there with Spurs for quite a while to try to get the right players at the right time. So they probably had to pay those fees.
Ronnie, as a fan, wouldn't you rather your season ticket price be lower than agents getting paid all this money? Ronnie? Can you hear me in Ireland? I think, Sky, do you not... let me put that to you, Sky, on the phone. Do you not think if you took lower wages, fans' season tickets could be cheaper?
It's unfair to link money being paid to agents in relation to ticket prices. You see, there are lots of different ways in which clubs make income. and it's up to a club to decide how they distribute their finances. Well, I think the question needs to be asked, why do managers use agents? Why do clubs use agents? If agents don't play a legitimate role in football, then why is everybody using them? But there seems to be a focus on what the agents are being paid, as opposed to what constructive or positive things an agent may add to a club. Like Mark said earlier, there are all different types of agents. I've looked after Jermaine Pennant from the age of 15, but that isn't a story. No player of mine has ever broken a contract. That isn't a story. What's a story is a headline figure, and that headline figure is going to a small group of agents. 90% of agents in football don't make a great living, but everyone focuses on the 5-10% that are.
Julian, what's your view on the issue of agents?
I think they are part of the game, very much like many other parts that need some change. Somebody looking at since FIFA to players, to agents, to directors, people spending money and putting money where we don't know. And you see this amount of money just going away on agents. Okay, they do good for players, yeah.
Julian, let me just cut in there. You mentioned FIFA. We're going to be talking about regulation in just a couple of minutes, but please don't go anywhere. You're watching Sports World. Have your say on BBC World News. Hello, welcome to Sports World. Have your say with me, Amanda Davis. Tributes are being paid to Brazilian legend Socrates, who passed away on Sunday at the age of 57. Plenty of you are getting in touch with us on Facebook and Twitter. Ursus Arctus in Germany has tweeted, "R.I.P. Socrates, a brilliant footballer and better man whose flaws only enhanced his legacy." Well, you wonder what Socrates would have made of the figures released this week about fees paid to agents in the English Premier League, a whopping $112 million in just the last year. We want to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Daylight robbery or a necessary evil? And we're also talking managers under pressure. Steve Bruce has been shown the door by Sunderland this week. Sir Alex Ferguson blamed the supporters, saying fans are just too fickle. Do you share his view? Well, get involved. Join our conversation using the hashtag SWHYS on Twitter, or maybe pick up the phone, give us a call on the usual number, +44 20 70 83 73 33. I've got Mark Bright in the studio with me this week. The team are busy beavering away behind the scenes, taking your calls and picking up your messages. But before we go any further, let's get a summary of the latest news. You're watching Sports World. Have your say. I'm joined by my own little bit of sunshine and sweetness in the studio this week, former Premier League striker Mark Bright. I've also got Ronnie, who joins us on Skype, an Aston Villa fan from Ireland with us. And Ralph is with us as well, a Spurs fan who joins us from South Africa. We're talking about agents. Are they the scourge of professional football, or are they a necessary evil? We were talking just before the break about regulation of agents, and are they regulated enough? Ralph, let's bring you in on that point.
Yeah, I think they're probably not. I think the trouble at the moment, or in football these days, is that the contracts are becoming more and more complicated. There's more and more sort of clauses and issues and what-if scenarios, and makes it incredibly difficult for the average footballer to be able to negotiate properly. So it's sort of a minefield, I think, and that's why we need agents more than likely, because they know all this stuff. But trouble is, of course, when they can see all those sort of loopholes and they're in it for themselves to a large degree. Of course, they're making a living. They're obviously going to cut some corners, I guess. So I think probably it could do with a bit of regulation, really, because 90% of the time it's just a contract with the player playing with his club.
Mark, how is agents? They've made themselves, they've carved themselves a niche that they have to fill, and only they can fill.
Well, when you come to the January window, Amanda, all clubs are looking for new players to bring in. And they depend on the agents then they line people up to say, right, if we sell him, can you get him in for us? And this is how they make themselves wild. They're a necessity. And as we said, when managers want to get rid of players, Amanda, they use agents. When they want to get players in, they use agents. For anyone who's never negotiated a contract, and especially if you've got a young, talented player, he needs to sit down there with if he sits down there with his dad, or a solicitor, they don't know how to negotiate a contract. I would say that the agents, for the very top players, and I think we heard Skandry say that there's only sort of 5 or 10% make a very good living. Everybody else just makes probably an average living. But I can tell you now that agents don't have the players' best interests at heart, man, because there are times when they're trying to negotiate a deal with a club and they will get paid more than the player. Now, you can't say that the agent's got the player's best interests at heart when he takes more money than the player earns.
Yeah, Mark, the problem for me is that it seems to be that not the big money deals, the Wayne Rooneys or the Cristiano Ronaldo. It seems to be the fact that they're exploiting the younger players in all of this.
Well, the rules and regulations in about what age they can take players from. But, Dougie Freeman, the Crystal Palace manager, has been complaining recently that, he's got kids in the academy, which, I know of like 14, 15, 16, where agents are just ringing their phones all the time, their parents, and they're trying to get them signed, and he said it's an unwanted influence from outside of football. What you want the players to do is just develop. Yes, you can have an agent on the outside, just develop until it comes time to negotiate. Come in and sit down and try and get the best deal for the player.
Funny you should mention Dougie Freedman. He's been saying this. I have 2 players of 18, 19 in and around the first team, and they're asking for my help because the agents are taking some money off their first contract. I've witnessed the tears. He then goes on to say, agents are ruining kids' lives. There's no law to stop them, Mark.
Well, there's more agents, I think, in the UK than anywhere else in the world. You look at all I'd have thought South America, Brazil, Argentina, etc. There would have been lots of agents, but it's all focused on in and around the Premier League. There was one stage where I could probably name you the top 4 or 5 agents in the country, and then there's just so many names now where people say he's my agent, he's my agent, he's my agent. When the players come in from abroad like Africa or whatever, they have several people representing them, and you don't know, the manager doesn't know really who he's dealing with. I think there was an influence with Asamoah Gyan moving out of Sunderland after sort of like a season, which was incredible, going to take the money in the UAE. And you're thinking you're 24, 25 years old and you're going to the UAE at this stage to, for the money. And the one agent was saying, no, you have to do this, you have to do that. So yes, there can be a disrupting influence when they want to move a player on, even if the player seems to be happy at that club, because it's all surrounding money, what the agent can get for himself and what, second probably, he can get for the player.
OK, Mark, I've got to apologise for my somewhat dodgy voice and cough today, but if I think I've got problems, there's a few managers in the English Premier League at the moment who have some serious problems of their own. Of course, Steve Bruce, the first Premier League manager to go this season, he was sacked by Sunderland earlier in the week, and we now know he's been replaced by Martin O'Neill. And Sir Alex Ferguson, funnily enough, he had some views on this, and he said it's all the fault of the fans.
A fella under Al McQuish has been under scrutiny a wee bit, but in the kind of climate we have of today's supporters, it's understandable. They just don't have the patience any longer. Ali, because he was manager of Birmingham City, doesn't help him either. But that's the kind of supporters we've got nowadays. No patience.
Well, let me welcome Ronnie to the John to the conversation. Ronnie has been with us for a little while. John is a Sunderland fan in Norway. What's your view on the events at the Stadium of Light this week?
Well, I was actually kind of hoping that Bruce would get some more time to see if he could pull it around. But when I saw the game last weekend against Wigan and saw how the fans reacted towards him, it kind of felt that, it was almost better for him to go also, so that he wouldn't have to have all that abuse thrown at him. And I don't know, I kind of liked what Bruce has done at Sunderland. He's steadily improved the squad, and he's brought us up the table from 16th when he took over, and then 13th, and then 10th last year. So I don't know. I think we've probably been a bit harsh on him. But if you look all around, the squad is better now, although we're desperately lacking a striker, as you could have seen today. So I I mean, I feel a bit sorry for him. I thought he did a good job at Sunderland.
Yeah, Wolves actually came back from a goal down to beat Sunderland 2-1 today in front of the new manager, Martin O'Neill. Do you think he was right, or do you think Martin O'Neill is the right person to come in, Mark?
Yeah, well, I feel sorry for Steve Bruce, Amanda, because Asamoah Gyan, Danny Welbeck and Darren Bent were among his strike force last year, and they were doing ever so well and fired the team, way up the league. There are 3 teams worse off than Sunderland at the moment at the bottom of the league. And I just think that Steve Bruce's connections, with being born in Newcastle, being a Geordie, I think the fans have they've turned against him. You hear him on the radio, saying tactically inept, doesn't make this, doesn't, it's all about recruitment. You've got to get the players in at the start of the season and trying to get your season moving forward quickly. Martin O'Neill.
With Sir Alex Ferguson, that it's the fans' fault he's gone?
I think they have a massive part to play, the fans, because if they're patient, you can see it at Wigan, and obviously Blackburn fans have turned against Steve Keane now. They have a massive influence. Once they decide to start booing and turn on, say, the board or anything like that, then the board will have to make a decision. Once the fans lose confidence in the manager completely, then they have no option. With Steve Bruce, I just feel that being a Geordie, being born in Newcastle and then managing Sunderland, it was too much for him in the end. When he was appointed, there were raised eyebrows from the Mackhams, if you like, just saying, I'm not sure if we want him. Newcastle born, he's a Newcastle fan. But it's a job. You go to the club and do the best you can do. There's no question about Steve. He's played some good football wherever he's been. He's at Wigan and Sheffield United, and at Crystal Palace he was there. Played some fantastic football. But he's just a victim of losing 3 strikers, especially Darren Bent. And the team's just slipped down the table, and now you have to rest it before the upcoming games, because that's where they say, do you know what? Look at the games coming up. Let's get a new manager in quickly and try and turn this around. I mean, the fans then give the new manager a chance. Martin O'Neill's won trophies at Celtic. Martin O'Neill did ever so well, won silverware at Leicester City, got them into Europe, won the League Cup. Didn't manage to crack the top 4 at Aston Villa, but had a good go. And then I think you'd have to say now, Martin O'Neill coming in at Sunderland, you've got to give Martin O'Neill some money in January, because otherwise they're going to hover around that bottom relegation zone. It's not going to be comfortable.
Ronnie, you're a Villa fan. What do you expect Martin O'Neill to take to Sunderland?
Well, Martin O'Neill, when he took over at Villa, I was absolutely thrilled, because I always followed Glasgow Celtic as well, and he had a great record with Wycombe Wanderers, Leicester, and he always appeared to me to be the manager that everybody wants to play for. He kicks every ball, he celebrates every goal, and he's a great philosopher as well. He talks a lot of sense, and I feel sorry for Steve Bruce, because he's a likeable guy and he is being successful. And I don't doubt, being a Geordie, that he wanted the best for Sunderland, as everybody does. It's his job to be a success, bring the success to the club. It didn't work out, like Mark says, because he lost 3 key players and 3 valuable players. And I think Martin O'Neill will bring something new. But again, like at Villa, if the money isn't made available, I think we were left reeling when Martin O'Neill left us. And he left us because there wasn't enough funds there, and he lost 2 key players as well, in Barry and in James Milner. But I think when he did go, we got Houllier, who in turn got the money that wasn't available for O'Neill. So I wish him the best of luck. I think he'd be successful there. He followed Sunderland as a kid. So I think no matter where he goes, he'll have the club and he'll win the fans over. Everywhere he goes, he's a likeable guy in management, on the field and off the field as well. So the best of luck to him.
OK, Ronnie, stay there, because you had O'Neill, you had Houllier, and now you've got Alex McLeish, who himself is a man under pressure, if you listen to some people and read a few things in a few of the papers, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in a couple of minutes. The other managers under pressure in the English Premier League. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Sports World, have your say. We're asking, are fans too fickle? Lots of managers under pressure at the moment. Blackburn boss Steve Keane can't stop the boos despite his side winning 4-2 yesterday. Andre Villas-Boas really under pressure at Chelsea. Alex McLeish as well at Aston Villa, and that of course after Steve Bruce was sacked earlier this week. We have Mark Bright with us. We've got Colin, who is a Sunderland fan, who joins us on Skype. And John's another Sunderland fan who joins us on Skype from Norway. Let me bring in a comment that's been sent by an anonymous Daily Mail reader who says, sometimes I think people seem to forget it's the team that plays the game. The manager can tell him the winning formula, but it's up to the players to do the playing. Colin, do you think fans are too harsh? Were Sunderland fans too harsh on Steve Bruce?
I've heard the word harsh used a lot today, and it's nonsense. The players may well be the people who do the playing, but the manager is paid a huge amount of money to motivate, organise, structure the team in order to put it in a winning position. Sunderland supporters are no more less fickle than any others, but we have been extremely patient. My website, Salu Sunderland, has been sitting on the fence until the very last minute in terms of Bruce. But we've won 2 games at home since New Year's Day. We lost today to a poor team, having been in a winning position. I don't think we're fickle at all, no, in that respect.
John?
Yeah, I couldn't hear all of what Colin said, but I tend to agree a little bit with him. I don't know. We do tend to be a little rush our. We want to win a little bit more than and maybe not see behind what's happening. Obviously, the summer unrest with Gyan didn't help Bruce, and not having anyone up front. I mean, that's going to be a problem for Martin O'Neill now too, I think so. But when it comes to the fans, and also what Mark said earlier about with Steve Bruce being a Geordie, I don't think that was the problem. I think the results was the problem, and the results and the performances. And it's a bit sad really, because they played in patches really some really good football, but they just couldn't score goals. And that's when that happens. I mean, you're going to get annoyed, and people are going to react when it comes to what the results are, and that's why people have turned against Steve Bruce. I think not because he was a Geordie.
Emmanuel has sent us a message on Facebook saying it's so bad for clubs to keep axing managers. Bruce doesn't deserve sacking. Mark, that's Sunderland. Who next, do you think?
Who next? I'll say that Steve Keane, I think there's a meeting tomorrow with the Venkies, so I think Steve Keane should be a little bit worried. He signed a new deal just a week or so ago, which the papers alluded to, that if he gets the sack, then he doesn't have to get the full compensation. But, you know, after such a good win, that, you know, Yakubu scoring 4 goals, you'd think the crowd would just sort of give him a little bit of leeway, but that doesn't seem like it's the way. But what I'd say to the Sunderland boys, that, you know, Connor Wickham and Nicholas Bentner have been brought in to try and bolster the attack and score some goals. I think they've scored 3 goals between them in something like 14 games. So, you know, the manager's done his best to try and get some strikers in, but, you know, goals have been a problem for Sunderland this year.
It was incredible, the scenes with Blackburn yesterday. Yakubu scoring 4 goals, goes to celebrate with his manager, and the crowds still boo. Desert Walker has actually said on the BBC Sport website, I think it's the first time I've seen a club's own fans booing after they scored a goal. I think it's quite admirable the way the Venkies support their manager. Keane has my support, and if he lasts the entire campaign, it will be nothing short of a miracle. It has to be said that Steve Keane, you've got to hand it to him, he still keeps coming out after these games and talking to the cameras, and this is what he had to say yesterday after the match.
I just want the fans to go home happy. I think we all want the same thing. We want to see the club win. We want to see the club score goals, climb the table. You know, we've done that tonight, and, you know, hopefully the fans on reflection will think we played well.
Let me welcome Tim, who is a Blackburn fan in New York. Will Steve Keane ever make your lot happy, Tim?
If he wins 5 games in a row, he'll make some people happy. There's a lot of people who've totally written him off. I've written him off to the extent that unless he performs a miracle, he's not going to have my backing. By the same effect, as long as he's in charge, we've got to hope, you know, he either wins or he gets sacked.
Mark, why is it?
That's all we can hope for at the moment.
Mark, why is it that with all this abuse that he's getting, Venky's are standing by him? I suppose you've got to say the same about Wigan with Martinez. They're not doing very well, bottom of the table, and they're sticking by their man.
Look at the formula at the end of last year, and you look who just survived, and I think it was 39 points it took to survive. Now Blackburn, with a third of the season gone, have got 10 points. So if you two-thirds left, you think, well, they're going to get 30 points max. They're going to go down. They sacked Sam Allardyce, which everybody was astounded by, because Sam Allardyce, you just thought was nailed on to keep them in the Premier League. They wanted to play a different style of football. Steve Keane was given the opportunity, and survived last year, but under real pressure this year. But still, 2 wins takes them mid-table, level with Norwich or Swansea, wherever. And as the fan just said there, if he wins 5 games in a row, which is a big ask, only won 2 so far, haven't won away from home, they could get out of it. But you just feel that the crowd are not going to give him an opportunity, because they're going to continue to boo and boo and boo. And in football, man, you have to be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. Somebody else might come in and the team might not pull away from the danger area, and then the club have to give him an opportunity. So, you tend to look at the next couple of results being the key results.
Tim, why are these protests against Steve Keane and not against the Venkys?
It's because Keane's not winning his game.
But they're the people who appointed
10
him.
10 wins total in 40 matches. Pardon?
They're the people that appointed him.
I mean, the protests are going to be against Keane, but there's definitely a lot of backlash against Venkys as well. People are really unhappy with just the management of the club. We don't have a chairman. Who's running the show? Who could fire Keane if we wanted to fire Keane? We don't have a structure in place right now, other than the Rao family, Mrs. Desai and Keane. We're kind of at the whim of them, and it's turning against Venkys as well. But people have never been happy with them in charge, and they did a bit to placate that in the transfer window. But ultimately, we need them to fire Keane.
Andy Dunn has written, what was clear from this desperately needed success was that Keane will never manage his way into local affection. He'll always be tainted as a Venky's man, revival or no revival. Can you see any way back at all for him, Mark?
Well, it's just results. I mean, I spoke to Sam Allardyce, who Keane took over from, and he's obviously just started it at West Ham. And I said to him, how are you enjoying life in the capital? And he said, fans are the same anywhere in the world. If you win games, they're happy. If you don't, they're not. He said he's had a few, get back up north, big Sam, with a few explicitives in there. But he said that it's just all about results. And he understands that, and all the managers do as well. But, you do feel for Keane, because when the Venkys came in, you're thinking, wow, they're going to start splashing the cash. Are they going to start challenging, Manchester United and Man City in terms of the transfer window? They can pull in the big players, but no, they haven't. They've given Keane the opportunity. They brought some loan signings in, and basically, they find themselves in the relegation zone with a third of the season gone. And you'd have to say, watching them play as well, apart from a couple of performances, in grave danger going down this year.
OK, thank you, everybody, for getting in touch and getting involved in today's Sports World Have Your Say. Don't forget to carry on the conversation throughout the week on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll be back here, same time, same place, next week. Goodbye.